Hello and welcome to one more episode. This is your host again, Samer. So usually I don't do as much episode in a short period. But yesterday I pushed an episode about ChatGPT o1 preview and it got really good reaction. I gave it some business problems and I judged the responses from the new model. Mostly it was, well, good, but not what we expected. Now, with the reactions that I received, lots of people basically said one of two things. One was addressing my question of wondering how it works. I think most of us do not really understand how it works, but some people just mentioned to me something around the concept of chain of thought, reinforced learning, and human feedback. So I even shared in one of the comments a tweet I found online, basically on X, that talks about the concept of the thinking in OpenAI's o1 model. The other thing that many people highlighted in the comments, aside from the well-known fact that this model is good with coding, math, and I'm using it for business problem, is that they believe that my prompt, while maybe looked comprehensive, wasn't that optimized. So it could have led to these mediocre responses from the model, where on the flip side, I might have gotten something better if I better prompted it or maybe did some follow-ups. And hey, this might be me overvaluing OpenAI when they say thinking. Because in my mind, if the model is quote unquote thinking, even if I give it a not so detailed problem and then I ask it for a specific real life solution for the current problem and maybe for strategies to address it in the future, I would expect a thinking model to maybe ask questions. Usually I prompt this as part of my requests to ChatGPT in general or Claude, where I tell it a certain thing I want out of it. And at the end, I say, please ask questions to make sure that you have the full picture. And then I get a sequence of questions. I answer those. I usually get a much better result. If it's thinking, I would expect that to come automatically. Beyond the fact, so now I've taken one of the problem I pushed to ChatGPT o1 yesterday, which was a supply chain business problem where one company, which is a phone manufacturer, is having an issue with one of its main chip suppliers with other problems in Europe and challenges. So now I've taken this same problem, I went to Claude again, I built up a more kind of a business case with numbers and figures. I will push it to ChatGPT o1. I will see how it responds, giving solutions for that problem. And then if it's not satisfactory, I'm gonna start to prompt it further to try to get some real life solution, things that, let's see, could be something astonishing to see. And then I'll either judge it as, yes, I was wrong, maybe I didn't give it the time and it's much better model than 4.0 that we had, I might come back to the same conclusion. So I'm going into this not knowing the outcome, and we'll just do this together step by step. So you'll have to bear with me. I'm gonna read a bigger prompt now to ChatGPT o1. We'll push it and then we'll take it together step by step. It could happen from the first go, giving it all these extra details, or it could take us some time as we prompt it until we get to a resolution. Either, yeah, it's doing much better or it's giving the same type of responses. And hey, I will include a card here in this video to refer to the other video I'm talking about, and I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested to go watch that. And with this, let's get started. Okay, so let's go through this more detailed, more articulated problem and then take it to ChatGPT o1 preview. So Global Tech Innovations, GTI, is facing a critical supply chain crisis that threatens its ability to produce and deliver its flagship AI-powered smartphone. The company heavily relies on advanced 5-nanometer semiconductor chips, specifically the QSS A5 chip manufactured by Quantum Semiconductor Solutions, QSS in Taiwan, which is experiencing geopolitical tensions and water shortages. Additionally, GTI must adapt to new environmental regulations in the EU market, improve its ESG scores to meet investor expectation, and navigate a highly competitive market landscape. The case study outlines the challenges faced by GTI and calls upon chief-level employees to develop a comprehensive solution. Okay, so the background: GTI is a leading multinational technology corporation known for its cutting-edge AI-powered smartphones. The company's success QSS heavily relies on partnerships with QSS, a Taiwanese manufacturer of advanced 5nm semiconductor chips, specifically the QSS A5 chip, which is essential for GTI's AI-powered smartphones. GTI supply chain is currently optimized for just-in-time delivery with manufacturing centers in China, Vietnam, and India, and distribution centers located in the United States, Germany, and Singapore. Marketing analysis. According to a recent market study, a global smartphone market is expected to grow at a CAGR of 6.5%. The CAGR, if you don't know that, that's the compound annual growth rate, basically the growth of the business year over year. So it's expected to grow by 6.5% from 2021 to 2028. GTI currently holds 15% market share, with its AI-powered smartphones being key driver of growth. However, the company's market position is threatened by the current supply chain crisis and its inability to meet the new EU environmental regulation. Okay, something more about competition. So GTI's main competitors in the AI world smartphone market include Apple X, so just not to use the brand name, 30% market share, strong presence in North America and Europe. Samsung AI, 25% market share, dominant in Asia and growing in Latin America. Huawei Tech, 20% market share, strong presence in China and emerging markets. Okay. Financial impact. GTI's financial statement for the past 3 years are as follow. So 2020, 50 billion of revenue, gross profit 20 billion, and then net income 8 billion, and it's increasing year over year. So it's somehow a consistent business of towards growth and maintaining profitability. So let's go to the next section. The supply chain crisis is expected to result in a 20% reduction in production capacity, translating to a potential revenue loss of 12 billion in 2023. So that's catastrophe type of loss in any business. Chip shortage details. The QSS A5 chip is a highly advanced 5nm semiconductor chip that integrates AI processing capabilities, making it essential for GTI's AI-powered smartphone. The chip's unique architecture allows for faster and more efficient AI computation, giving GTI's a competitive edge in the market. Okay. Manufacturing and distribution. GTI has 3 main manufacturing centers. Shenzhen, China produces 50% of GTI's smartphone. Hanoi, Vietnam produces 30% of GTI smartphone. And then Bangalore, India produces 20% of GTI smartphones. The company has 3 primary distribution centers. Los Angeles, United States serves the North American market. Frankfurt, Germany serves the European market, and Singapore serves the Asia market. Supply chain analysis. GTI's current supply chain relies heavily on QSS for semiconductor chips, okay, with 80% of its chip supply coming from the Taiwanese manufacturer. The following table outlines the company's chip inventory and demand. So we have the inventory and the projected demand. Okay, so we have per quarter the chip inventory in millions. So we have 10 million, 8 million. So it's diminishing, it's reducing. You can see consistently, and the demand is increasing. So you have double whammy, is that the term? So you have inventory going down and demand going up. Although the problem mentioned that their model is right on time type of supply chain, which doesn't suggest that. So at least they kept some chipsets. Okay, so let's just take it as it is. So they're getting into the zone where they're in trouble, where they might run out of chips. And if we can see, basically they're losing around 2 million chips per quarter. So that means that in 2 quarters, they will be out of chips. So they have around 6 months to take action and solve the problem. Okay. So then there's a problem statement. I think it's very clear for us, the problem. And then some articulation on what is to expect out of this problem. I will not take that part. So let me just take the part that explains the problem and the problem itself, and then I'll push it to ChatGPT O1 preview, and then we'll see how it will react to this much more detailed supply chain problem compared to the one I threw it yesterday. So let's go to ChatGPT. I'll open a new window. You can see here it's ChatGPT O1 preview. And if you don't see it in the screen, well, take my word for it. It's the one selected. So let me paste the message here. I'll just add one more line to make sure that my request is very clear out of this big prompt. So I added this to the end. You are the CEO of the company with the above problem details as your context. I need you to consider this problem in all its details and come up with an immediate crisis management plan with specific actions, numbers, and budgets to enable the business to survive the issue as explained above. So here goes nothing, and let's see how it responds. And we have a response. So let's go through it. It took it 32 seconds to think and answer. Okay, immediate crisis management plan for Global Tech Innovations, GTI. As the CEO of Global Tech Innovations, I recognize the urgency of addressing the critical supply chain crisis that threatens our ability to produce and deliver our flagship AI-powered smartphone. Okay. This plan outlines specific actions, budgets, and timelines to navigate the immediate challenges and ensure long-term sustainability of the business. Diversify chip suppliers. Okay, so identify alternative suppliers, initiate immediate discussions with our semiconductor manufacturers capable of producing advanced 5nm chips with AI capabilities such as Samsung Foundry, TSMC's and other facilities, and Intel's foundry services. Fast-track qualifications. Allocate resources to expedite the testing and qualification of alternative chips to ensure they meet the performance standards. Budget allocation. 500 million, 350 million for securing supply contracts with the new suppliers, including potential premiums for expediting production. 150 million for R&D and testing to integrate new chips into our smartphones. Timeline, the immediate initiation, aiming to have alternative supplies operational within 6 months. So it automatically grasps that in 6 months it's going to run out of any inventory. Negotiate priority supply with QSS. And by the way, so far, the way it gave you a budget, like looked at the money, took a budget out and allocated it for all of this, I can say maybe I was wrong. Maybe I jumped to conclusion really quickly. And definitely this is something, not definitely, but in most cases you wouldn't get it from 4.0. At least I didn't experience that. Negotiate priority supply with QSS action plan. Strategic partnership. Propose a mutually beneficial agreement with Quantum Semiconductor Solutions. Secure priority access to the QSS A5 chip. Financial incentive. Offer a 1 billion advance payment to QSS to secure a guaranteed supply over the next 12 months. So that's a big bold game that the CEO is doing, or this AI is doing. So I know what I know. I've never been in a position of a CEO. If you have such an insight to decisions at that level, probably this makes sense for such scale, such growth, such opportunity in the market. So the market is growing a lot, demand is increasing. So 1 billion in hindsight doesn't seem as a crazy idea just to throw at your main supplier to secure your deliveries of the chips that you need to really ride that wave of the market. But if you have insights on that topic from a business perspective, if you're a finance guy close to a CFO or a CFO yourself, please write me a comment and tell me how you would judge this. So budget allocation, 1 billion advance payment included in procurement budget. Timeline, negotiations to begin immediately with an agreement targeted within 1 month. So someone is going to be under pressure in the procurement department. I know how that feels. Increase inventory through stockpiling. Action plan, bulk purchasing. Place an immediate order for an additional 30 million QSS A5 chips to cover projected demand for the next 4 quarters. Logistics management. So you see it already also forecasted based on the basic number we gave it. It forecasted with the growth, I think, the demand and the inventory levels currently there. And it made a number, like it estimated a number, a value to secure the chips over a certain period of time. Now that's very questionable how it did it. That would be interesting just to follow up with a prompt after I go through this. I'm going to ask it about where it got the 30 million from. Budget allocation, so 2.4 billion for chip purchases, assuming $80 per chip, so there's an assumption behind it. 100 million for additional warehousing and logistics. Interesting, lots of money being thrown at the problem. Purchasing complete within 2 months. Invest in in-house chip development, so that's going the Apple way. Action plan, accelerate R&D, expand our semiconductor research and development team to create priority AI chips. Talent acquisition, recruit top semiconductor engineers and AI specialists to bolster our in-house expertise. Budget allocation, 1.5 billion over 3 years, 500 million per year. Timeline, immediate start, okay. They want to go with the in-house chips in 3 years, okay. Expand and diversify manufacturing facilities. New facilities establish manufacturing plants in Mexico and Poland to reduce geopolitical risks and be closer to key markets. Rebalance production, so decrease reliance on Shenzhen facility from 50% to 30% of total production. Budget allocation, 1 billion, okay, 600 million for the Mexico facility and 400 million for the Poland facility. That looks okay. So I'll have to ask for some logic behind these numbers. But it's interesting just to understand the logic it put together for these numbers. These are big numbers. Comply with EU environmental regulations. Okay, there's a budget for that. Improve ESG scores. Again, budget. So it's throwing lots of money at the problem. So I don't know if a real-time CEO, it's a big business. So the money is there, but I'll have to re-prompt to understand the basis of those budgets. Okay, so there's a budget for ESG scores, financial strategy and risk management. So again, some money to address risks. I'll not go into these in detail. Enhance stakeholder communication, so intensify communication. Again, 10 million for communication efforts. Strengthen competitive market position. So let's look. Okay, there's something. It also brought in a plan around the budget, so the money factor. I was going to prompt it this. So let's see what it has to say. And all of this it's a response to that one prompt still. So total budget requirement approximately 7.36 billion. Funding strategy, okay, interesting. Cash reserves, utilize 3 billion from existing reserves. Cost savings, reallocate 1 billion from non-critical projects. External financing, raise 3.36 billion through debt or equity. Interesting. So either they, I assume, sell stocks in the market or they take debt, they take loans. Expected outcomes. Supply chain stabilization. Secure enough chips to meet demand, preventing the projected 12 billion revenue loss in 2023. So spend 7 billion to save yourself from an inevitable loss of 12 billion. I don't know how much that makes sense. Let's read on. Risk mitigation, decrease the dependence on a single supplier and geographic locations, reducing the future supply chain risks. Regulatory compliance, maintain access. Okay. Anything else? Implementation timeline, and then conclusion. So let me give it more specific questions and see how it responds to those. Okay, so let's give it this follow-up prompt. How would you explain all those moves to the board? While this might be obvious to you, it might not be to the company board, as we are talking big numbers to address this challenge. Moreover, how would you manage market response and balance sheets on quarterly basis to ensure that stock prices doesn't take a hit? And what would be your guarantees to investors, regardless institutional or retail, on maintaining value from earnings per share, dividend, and other financial aspects influential in the market, keeping in mind that you're considering selling some equity? Lastly, how would you break down each item's budget with an estimate basis? How did you derive such figures? So let's send this one and see how it will respond. Okay, so it took it 5 seconds to think. So as the CEO of Global Tech Innovations, it is imperative to present a comprehensive plan to the board that not only addresses the immediate supply chain crisis, but also ensures the long-term sustainable and profitability of the company. Below is the detailed explanation. Okay, let's go to that. Explaining the strategic moves to the board, emphasizing the urgency and strategic necessity, contextualizing the crisis. So supply chain disruption risk, the resilience on QSS for 80% of our chips combined with the geopolitical tensions and water shortages in Taiwan poses an immediate threat to our production capacity, potential revenue loss. Without action, we are facing a projected 12 billion revenue loss in 2023, which would significantly impact our market share and financial stability. Cost of inaction versus action. So inaction leads to a production cut, loss of market share, decline in stock prices, and potential long-term damage to GTI's brand. Action requires substantial investment, but positions us to mitigate risk, maintain market position, and set the stage for future growth. So this is a great way to really present a problem, and they're calling it here cost of inaction, or it could be opportunity cost. So what's the opportunity that you're losing? This is a more positive side, I think, but it's a good way to put it to a board. I would assume that telling them, hey, for sure you're losing $12 billion. We might actually do a lot better in the future and solve this problem if we do this. So That's an interesting way to put it. Highlight the strategic benefits, so diversifications and risk mitigation. Supplier diversification reduces dependency on single supplier. Okay, that's obvious. Financial resilience. Okay, so that's part of the messaging to the board itself. Now let's go to some numbers. Return on investment, ROI, and financial projections. So projected outcomes. Revenue preservation, avoiding a 12 billion loss in 2023. Market share maintenance, keeping our 15% market share in a growing market. Long-term growth, positioning GTI for increased profitability in subsequent year. So it's not only we're solving today's problem, but we're preparing ourselves to do better and to do more in the future. So that's an interesting way to put it. Financial markets, ROI on investments expected to cover the 7.3 billion investment within 2 to 3 years through sustained revenue and cost savings. Earn per share, so the EPS, by maintaining profitability, we aim to keep EPS stable or growing, which is crucial for stock valuation. Addressing the concerns over large expenditures, strategic necessity, proactive measures emphasize that these investments are necessary to prevent a far greater financial loss. Competitive advantage. By acting decisively, we can outperform competitors who may also be facing similar challenges but are slower to respond. So that's a very interesting way to put it, as an opportunity for the board or even the investors. And this is where usually crisis is where some companies actually gain market share. And in many cases, the competitors of a company that takes such bold moves might maybe spend more time considering it, thinking it, allocating budgets, maybe getting to sell this to the board. So if the board and the CEO are working well together and they make such bold moves in the market, that might secure them a market share, a much bigger market share for years to come. So that's a very interesting way to put it. Financial prudence, balanced funding, utilizing a mix of cash reserves, cost savings, and external financing to minimize a financial strain. Cost management, commitment to identifying and implementing cost-saving measures across the organization. This is a tricky one. So this is a tricky one. I will ask it one more question around this, because usually this means cost cutting. They're growing, but they might need to cut. So that's a tricky one. I'll ask it to give me more details on that. Managing market response and financials. So transparent communication with the market. Okay, investor relationship strategy. So basically they're talking about highlight positive outcome, regular updates. Okay, let's see what they talk about the messaging. So confident in strategy, convey a strong message that GTI is taking decisive action to secure its future. Okay, long-term vision, reinforce our commitment to sustainable growth and innovation. Financial management to support stock prices, earnings management, revenue assurance. By securing chip supply, we aim to meet or exceed our revenue targets. Cost control, implementing cost saving. Okay. Dividend policy, maintaining dividends, strive to keep dividend payouts consistent to reassure income-focused investors, communicating dividend plans, clearly communicate any changes in dividends policy well in advance. Earning per share, managing equity dilution. If issuing new equity, we'll structure it to minimize dilution and protect EPS. Share buybacks. Consider future share repurchase programs to enhance shareholder value once financial stability is ensured. So it's a tricky balance. So they want to push some more stocks in the market, some more equity to get more funding. That could affect the earning per share and the valuation of the share itself. Maybe at a later stage, they might buy it back. So again, to take prices up and give back to the investors that were there for them during the time of crisis. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's a very tricky balance to achieve. Guarantees to investors. Commitment to shareholder value, protecting investments by mitigating risk. We are safeguarding the value. Okay. So other things interesting. So honestly, it's giving something definitely for O can't give. 100% for O can't give at this stage. Yeah, I definitely was too fast in my judgment and conclusion. I apologize, OpenAI O1 preview, if you are somehow listening to this. So, okay, so let's see detailed budget breakdown. So this is what we are interested in. So total budget to diversify the chip suppliers. Total budget was 500 million. So let's just take some of them, not everything. And I want just to ask it about the cost-cutting measures before I wrap up this episode. So assumptions: upfront payments or premiums to secure priority production slots to alternative suppliers. Estimation basis: negotiated terms may require deposits or higher per unit costs, estimated at an additional $10 per chip for 35 million chips over the next year. So it estimated the chip price, and then it estimated the premium, and then it did the calculation. Makes sense. It's just reasonable with the level of details, again, that I provided. R&D and testing. So this is the activities. Again, the estimation basis based on historical R&D costs for similar scale projects and accelerated timelines. That it took it from the internet or its training data. That could be very interesting to even follow up on. I will not do it here, but definitely we're working with something. Yeah, this is something that is not out there yet as a model. So this is first of its type, especially with the type of response and the details and the scope. If you notice how much text is throwing in after one prompt. Negotiate priority supply with QSS. So this is 1 billion. Estimate basis and advance payment covering approximately 25% of the total contract value, incentivizing QSS to prioritize GTI. Okay, so this is just to secure guaranteed supply of 40 billion chips over the next 12 months. So everything has reasoning behind it, by dollar or by quantity or by a timeline or business need or requirement to achieve that. So you can see it's all robust numbers. It just didn't throw numbers at me. So this is, let's go to one more thing. This is the interesting one we touched on, which is the facility cost. So the Mexico facility, based on average costs for building a manufacturing plant of similar capacity in North America. So again, this is interesting. I don't know what it has in its training data. Is it something that enables it to give such a confident response? It could be something. I actually will ask it about this. And then I'll ask it about what type of cost saving it's talking about. And let's see how it responds. But, you know, if you do something similar, you're going to see the level of numbers and details. I'm sure you can see it here on the screen, backing up with very little detail I gave it every number and every figure it's putting forward. So it's somehow creating that kind of really comprehensive plan at this stage. So this is something totally different from what I got yesterday with that simple prompt. And you can see also the context of the response. It's big. It's bigger than what I've usually seen with 4.0. So let me give it one more last prompt and we'll wrap up the episode. But I think already it's really doing better than anything I've seen out there. So let's see if this last prompt confirms it or even makes us think more highly of this model we're working with now. Okay, the last prompt. Tell me more about the cost cutting or saving you mentioned to the board. While expanding to new locations and in-house manufacturing, how do you plan to recover money from cost cutting and how would you save that money in detailed actions on the ground? So basically how you will really do it, because they're saying they're going to grow, they're going to do more, but they want to cost cut. So how does that work? And then also you mentioned that the cost of the Mexico facility is based on average cost for a similar facility. Do you have such information in your training data, or is this based on a specific public information? Tell me how you got the figure in details. So two things I wanted answered. So let's see how much time it takes it to respond to this one. Okay, so it responded in 31 seconds. So this is nearly what it took for the first original prompt. So that's interesting. So there's lots of thought behind this one. And it's a long answer, so I was surprised. So I will not go through it. I'll just go to snippets that are interesting to me as I scan it, and we'll see, we'll judge together. So the objectives of the cost cutting, okay, they want to recover approximately 1 billion through cost saving measures. So that's part of the 7 billion is gonna come from cost savings. And the reasons why: strategies for cost cutting. Okay, process optimization, implement lean manufacturing principles to eliminate waste and improve workflow in our production facilities. Okay, so automate repetitive tasks. So basically that's could be meaning replacement of some of the people they have. Supply chain efficiencies, use advanced analytics to optimize inventory levels. Again, they're going to go to reduce inventory after they buy a lot just to secure and solve the problem. So reducing holding costs without risking stock outs. So they want to play that right on time type of model again. Consolidate shipments to reduce logistic costs. I don't know if that gets you close to 1 billion. Expected savings, Process optimizations, 200 million annually through increasing productivity, and then supply chain efficiencies, 150 million annually. If you're a supply chain logistics person, can you confirm or deny 150 million for mobile manufacturer? I think that's doable for such revenue level. But yeah, if you're out there, you're an expert, you can either say it's good or just not realistic to save 150 million out of these optimizations of just bundling shipments. Reducing non-essential expenditures. Okay, so this is limit travel, reduce utility costs. Okay, makes sense. Marketing and sales optimization, focus marketing efforts on high ROI channels, reduce spend of less effective mediums, negotiate better rates. Okay, makes sense. So this is expecting 50 million annually from the administrative cost cuts, which is traveling, and then marketing and sales to reduce 100 million. So it has a logic behind every number. So when you think of it, I don't know if it works that every time I ask it more, it just builds up the puzzle to make sense for that original number, or all of this was somewhat considered when it gave me the original numbers, original plan. That would be interesting to understand more, and it could be part of what we don't understand of how AI works, because all these numbers plug in a seemingly proper manner into each other. So it sounds and feels and looks like it has thought it out at that level of detail from the first prompt. So hiring freeze, so they're gonna freeze hires. That's interesting. Voluntary retirement packages, so offer incentive for early retirement to reduce headcount in a way that is respectful and fair. Makes sense. Okay, they're expecting 70 million from that and 80 million from the retirement packages. Supplier negotiation. Okay, so they want to go back to the supplier and get more money. So more pressure on the procurement team. Okay, what else? Project and R&D prioritization. So they're going to prioritize the critical type of R&D research and nothing else. So they will cut basically R&D projects that are not priority as of today. Implementation on the ground. Okay, operational steps. It's very interesting. And then they're putting all these together and it's getting them to 900 million with slightly below the 1 billion target. These savings significantly contribute. It's interesting. So it said we are planning to give 1 billion, but if you ask me for the details, here are the details and they're coming short of 100 million from the 1 billion. I don't know why. So it just tells you what's happening behind the scenes is more complex than what we think is happening from the outside. Okay, now the answer about the Mexico facility. So $600 million, okay, for the Mexico facility is based on industry data, general knowledge from industry reports and studies on manufacturing plant costs, comparable projects, publicly available information. So it has access to public information. So it could be part of the training models data. Okay, so it's looking, even mentioning the economic indicators, construction cost, labor rates, and material prices in Mexico. Detailed cost broke down, land acquisition. So now it's giving estimates for each step. You can see if you look at it. So it's giving, for example, the land acquisition is 30 million, land purchase approximately $10 million for suitable industrial land, site preparation 20 million for grading, utility setup and environmental compliance, and then construction costs estimate 250 million, facility construction around 500 square feet. At 400 per square foot, including clean rooms and specialized areas. So this is to manufacture semiconductors potentially in the future. The breakdown is 500,000 square feet multiplied by $400 per square feet. It takes to $200 million. Additional structures, warehouse, offices totaling 50 million. Equipment and machinery for 200 million. So it's giving the estimate. So it's really breaking down every single dollar in that estimate, and then it's giving here the categories, which totals 600 million. How the figures were derived: industry benchmarks, public information, and economic data. Acknowledging limitations, estimates. These figures are preliminary and would be refined throughout detailed feasibility studies. So it's running things like chief level, honestly, response, integrating cost cutting. Honestly, amazing. Definitely I made a mistake. So I'll make the last judgment call. I was wrong in my previous video. While it was interesting to see, I think I was wrong. I judged too fast. I judged based on small prompts, too little interaction, and maybe too fast. I think this is this experiment today is a much better showcase for me to judge the model. I think, all in all, this is super impressive. I don't know the level. Now I know it's in testing, so even we have a limited window. If I keep exchanging with it, I think I get 30 responses from it, and then it stops until they roll out the model and they can keep up with the demand. But it's definitely way beyond anything that OpenAI has, and possibly others have as well. I don't think Claude can do this kind of analysis. This is my personal opinion again, so you can write a comment in the comment section if you believe otherwise. Is it scary? I think so. I think if it takes in the future big data sheets of details of supply and demand trends in the company, the financial statements of the company, it probably will give something maybe not any one single person, regardless of how smart they are, can put together. It's comprehensive, broken down. It makes estimates for you. It has reasoning that looks at every bit of the problem, all angles captured. I know people are worried about AI taking over their jobs. I don't think even CEOs are exempted from that worry. If a CEO is there, and they should work with AI to make sure whatever they play with is safe, because it's not going to affect only humans in their organization. It could be the thing that takes even their job. Because at some point, if the companies are thinking, oh, this will reduce some jobs of the office type of working or workers, this can take, I think, the mid-management to top management jobs as well. Maybe not all of them, many of them, including the chief executive officer of the company. So maybe the board in 10, 20 years will be talking to AI. I don't know. For me personally, and this is a different topic for a different episode, I keep telling people I don't know. I think AI should be controlled, should be regulated, because you cannot assume that things will be so bad because of AI or so good because of AI. I am happy with AI. I use it a lot. It makes my life much easier, and it makes me generate and do so many things on top of my full-time job. But no one knows where this thing will go. Remember, we are 2 years in and we have something like this, which is crazy, honestly, to wrap your head around. Good. We have something out of this world that you can use every day in business. Maybe it will help you complement your unique IQ, your unique character that you should be taking to your work every day. So this will just make you do things better, faster, more comprehensively. And with this, apologize for the quick judgment, OpenAI O1 preview. I really apologize for that. And today is the real judgment. It's definitely a much better model than anything else I've seen out there. And with this, thank you for hanging in, and goodbye.